And welcome back to the Constitutionals Podcast. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the premier podcast for the website, cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, as the website, go there. Let me timestamp this episode. Guess what? Urban Meyer just hired by the Jags to be the head coach. I always think it's so interesting before we get to we have a lot of stuff to get to. I think it's so interesting when college coaches go to the big leagues. And be that for football, basketball, baseball, the others. I always think it's interesting, and sometimes their careers translate and work wonders. But the other times it's a completely different game because it's slower, more methodical like, and it's especially true for between college football and pro football. One of those I do not watch. The other, the Dallas Cowboys are my team. So, you know which one. But yeah, I don't watch college sports regardless. So it's very interesting to see though. But I know, obviously I know the big name coaches, and I want to see them succeed. I want to see what they can do with the big boys or their big girls, or whatever gender they want to be. When it comes to professional sports. Speaking of professional sports, this is a quick little tangent. I was watching, oh God, I forgot what season. Oh God, I don't know what season of. I was watching a season of Survivor, and I want to say 24 or 25. That's a SpongeBob. Patrick, I know something funnier than 24. 25. That episode of SpongeBob came on Sunday, and I was watching it. It's very weird to watch old SpongeBob and new SpongeBob. One's a lot more zany for no purpose, but then the older ones are zany for, I guess, purpose, for effect. But it's all the same. It's all so stupid. Season 25 of Survivor, and one of the people who was voted out. This season's about 15 years old, so I guess I can say this. Is an old pro baseball player, and so he's made a lot of money, obviously already. His name is Jeff. And the entire time he's there, the first 8 episodes, I'm like, oh, this guy, he knows how to play the game. He's really trying to play his game, and he seems like a decent guy. He's from Texas, already iffy. You know where I'm going with this. He's from Texas, and he's got the Southern accent, and he's not telling people that he played baseball. He recognizes one of the other players who used to be on an 80s sitcom, and she left that world, and now, so anyway. So, he seems like a nice guy, and then at one point he gets voted out, and then in his testimonial at the end of the episode that they play over the credits, he goes, "Man, see, I've already made after playing baseball $60 million, and I just wanted this $1 million so bad, but it's not even $1 million. It turns out to be about $600,000 after Obama gets his cut." And I went, "Oh my God!" So I paused it. And I went back 10 seconds, and he said, and I heard the Obama thing, and I went, "Oh no, is this guy a racist?" Looked him up. Not a good guy. So yeah, very interesting to see, especially after all the riots last week, that guy was indeed a non-savory type. But let's get to this. Already 4 minutes into an episode that's probably going to be 40 minutes long. So this week saw the season premiere of new shows, and even shows starting out entirely. As of basically what I just said. So both, oh God, what is her name? Lily Singh and Stephen A. Smith shows premiered. So Stephen A. Smith has a new show on ESPN Plus called Stephen A.'s World, and it is a late night style show, but with sports. And when I say a late night style show on ESPN Plus, it is half an hour of a guy talking about sports. And it happens to air at 5:30 p.m., which I guess is late night now, on ESPN Plus. Nowhere else. So the show is Stephen A. Smith by himself, giving, I can liken this to, oh God, what is her name? To Samantha Bee. I can liken this to Samantha Bee or John Oliver to this being a half-hour show, and then, them having two stories up top and then like a main story or like one main story. It's anyway. So that's what Stephen A's show is. But the problem is he already has this show and he shares it with another person in First Take. Or two other people in First Take. So that's what it is. It's just him regurgitating the same thing he said at 9 a.m. Versus, but now it's 5:30. And then also he interviews celebrities. And, but we don't need that. Like the world does not need another show like this, which is interesting because I looked up, I know Katie Nolan. I looked up Katie Nolan, and she had a show because I remember this. It was Always Late with Katie Nolan and I thought that show was great. But it was on ESPN, and then moved it to like ESPN2, and then basically now it's canceled. Because they couldn't do it from home. And then turns out that Katie basically doesn't want to work with ESPN anymore because, her podcast, she had just signed a contract in the fall, and then they fired her podcast producer, who'd been with ESPN for a very long time, or they laid her off. That's what they're saying. And she was 13 years with the company, and then Katie basically said on her podcast who the woman is. Like, I guess the woman was still with the show up until like early this year. That she would not have stayed with ESPN had she known that was going to happen. And I mean ESPN. This is what it gets into, the part where they cut off a leg, hoping to attach another leg that's it's like I don't know, like it's like a Frankenstein's monster, you just like this leg doesn't work, what about this leg, and we'll put this on and sew this on, it's a little bit shorter, and it gives you a little hobble when you walk. I mean, it's insane. And Stephen A's show does not need to exist because he already has. He has a radio show. He's got First Take. He pops up on other shows. He pops up on Sports Center. He pops up on The Jump. I don't know. And he just seems, I wrote down in my notes, he seems stiff. It's needless sports commentary in a late night format. On the first two episodes, he talked to Snoop Dogg and Steve Harvey. He speaks, and the problem, one of my big problems with Stephen A. Smith and basically people talking about sports in general, be it at Fox Sports or CBS Sports or NBC Sports or ESPN, is that, or ABC Sports, I guess, too as well, is that they all scream when they talk. And everybody just kind of talks like this, like they're trying to get their point across. Like, and it's, I mean, men and women, they both do it, and it's annoying to see, and it's so stupid because it makes you seem like there can be a lot of nuance to talking about, just like news, there can be a lot of nuance to talking about sports, and that's why you have some sports journalists that have become these great personalities, like Adrian Wojnarowski. I know I've just mispronounced his last name. He's great. I think Kellerman could be good without, him yelling over things. And I think Stephen A has some smart things to say, like when he said about Kyrie Irving needing to retire because he's missed 4 games for personal reasons without telling people without telling the league rather what the personal reasons are. So anyway, yeah. Oh, and then he has a mic drop segment to end the show, which I think it's very him. That he basically he wraps up everything and he has a conclusion and everything, and I think that's cool. But other than that, I don't think the show needs to work. I mean, I don't think the show needs to be on. But conversely, Lily Singh's show, which I did write a packet for, that's not a joke. I wrote a packet for that show, and I thought it did pretty damn well. But apparently, they did not. The show. The second season is basically a reboot, and it's a much needed reboot. They're now shooting at a house which I think they rented out in California, in Los Angeles. And the entire crew is there. The writers write in a little kid's treehouse, and they have a rant room for her to do rants in. And it looks like a high-produced YouTube show, which is her strength. This is who Lily is. They are really playing into her strengths versus throwing her in a pantsuit and putting her in front of an audience. She never needed an audience. She never needed an audience. She plays better when she's in front of a camera. I'm sorry, there's a bug flying around. She plays better when she's in front of a camera. She plays by herself, and she's playing off of, the camera person, or she's playing off of herself. And there's little cutaways and those little rant topics that she does. So yeah, she interviewed I only watched one episode of that, but because I'm still bitter they didn't hire me. That packet was pretty friggin' good. She spoke to Sway T, the raptress, whose video froze mid-interview, and Lily just rolled with it, and that's good. And the show looks good. I don't know if it's because I watched it on my iPad and it was kind of shrunk down, and it was on this a Retina display, and it was in HD, it was streaming in HD, but I don't know how it looks blown up on the television, but it felt like a YouTube video, and it felt like they could easily break out everything onto the web. It plays their strengths, and that's all I wanted to say. You know what? I think we might have to take a break. Yeah, because the stuff I want to talk about is still coming up. All right, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about everything. Come on, buddy. Here we go. Going to break right now. And we're back from break. Last week's episode was really well produced, and this week's episode, I'm still trying to find the happy medium. I don't know what to do. I don't want to buy an arm for my desk because I also don't like this desk. But buy an arm for the desk for the microphone, even though that'll make things easier because I have this on-stage mic stand. But now I'm contortioning myself and leaning and ruining my posture. Hey, Peloton released an upgrade, a feature on the app, not on the app, on the website, and the device equipment, like the tread and the bike, and then eventually it'll be on the app, called stacking, where it's basically a playlist for workouts that you want to do for that day. So I'm excited. I can't wait to do that. I've been wanting that feature for a long time. Hopefully they put it on the app sooner rather than later, and hopefully you can save workouts, stacks. Anyway, let's move on because we got a lot to talk about. A lot of good stuff happened. A lot of stuff happened in the entertainment business world. This comes from the New York Times, written by John Coblin, my good friend. Viewers streaming favorites ? Old network TV shows. So basically what this is saying, it's a chart from Nielsen. Nielsen is saying that most viewers of streaming television are streaming old things that they loved. Case in point, The Office, Grey's Anatomy, Criminal Minds, NCIS, Schitt's Creek, Supernatural, Shameless, New Girl, The Blacklist, and Vampire Diaries, all acquired series from Netflix. For 2020, they counted for just hundreds of millions of hours each. And the disparaging numbers between The Office and The Vampire Diaries, insane. Office, 952 millions of hours in 2020 versus Vampire Diaries, which is number 10, which is still number 10 out of all streaming, 235. For original series, Netflix dominated with the exception of Mandalorian, which took the number 5 spot, with Ozark, Lucifer, The Crown, Tiger King, Umbrella Academy, Great British Baking Show, Boss Baby, Back in Business, which I did a tribute to, Longmire, and You. Movies, Disney Plus and Netflix shared the same titles. Shared the track, the list, whatever. Frozen 2, Moana, Secret Life of Pets 2, Onward, Dr. Seuss's The Grinch, Hamilton, Spencer Confidential, Aladdin, Toy Story 4, Zootopia. Notice on that list, Onward is the only new one. And Hamilton. Onward and Hamilton are the only new ones. And they managed to break into that. Now, see, the Nielsen, this is, again, from Nielsen. Nielsen reported viewership for Netflix Disney Plus, Hulu, and Amazon, but has yet to release figures on Apple TV Plus, HBO Max, or Peacock. Now, keep in mind, this is not Netflix saying these things. It's Nielsen measuring things like, Twitter statistics, people talking about on Twitter, or, basically going into the back end and reporting what Netflix won't. It's basically like if, I am for sure butchering this, but it'd be like if LeBron, that bug is back. If LeBron scored a triple double, but the Lakers only said, they only accounted for the two pointer shots and nothing else. And they weren't reporting anything else. And then Nielsen said, they said, he had the most 2-pointer shots of the night, of anybody of the night. And then Nielsen said, yeah, but also he had a triple double. I just killed it. It's so stupid. But it's interesting that people are going back and watching the old things versus things that, did release, like Tiger King, which, pretty much everybody watched in 2020. I just thought that was a very interesting thing. But it's good that Nielsen is providing these statistics because people need to get a grasp, networks, people should get a grasp on what, it is popular to watch versus, the Netflix algorithm or Hulu suggesting it to you. And then also it works well for business side, the companies to go, okay, they really like The Office, we should make another show like that. But I think that is played out. Now, still in television, moving on. This is from the Wrap written by Reed Nakamura. LGBTQ representation on TV declined this year, GLAAD report says. However, I did see a statistic that said that broadcast GLAAD representation was up, or LGBTQ representation was up. The annual study is called Where We Are on TV. LGBTQ representation declined. I speed through it because there's just so many letters. I'm sorry. Representation declined year over year. I paused because this morning I was feeding the cat, and I was in the background. I was cooking my breakfast after stretching from the gym. Obviously, I was cooking my breakfast, and in the background on the TV, I was playing the latest episode of I think it was Seth Meyers. Doesn't matter who it was, but the previous episode of that, and I was making my breakfast, I was paying attention to the show, and then all of a sudden, if you have a pet, or a child, or a young child, you can hear when they're about to vomit, and all I heard was, I just tuned into that. That from the cat. And then I go, and I just, before she even gets it out, I go, God bless it. I'm like curse up a storm. I'm like, this always happens. Why you eat too fast? This is what happens when you eat too fast. I'm walking over there with the paper towels and, cleaner before she even does it. And then she goes, and she lets it out, and it's just, undigested kibble and wet food. And then she runs away because she's done something wrong. And then as I'm cleaning up, she slowly walks up to me and she looks at it and she's like, I didn't that. And then she expects me to feed her again, which I do not. Just a little bit. I give a little bit more food. But yeah, now I thought I heard that, but it was The Simpsons on television. Okay. Let's get back to. I'm glad I interrupted this LGBTQ representation thing to tell you a stupid story about my dumb cat, Nova. She's looking at me like crazy. Okay. The annual study found that 9.1% of series regulars, 70 out of 733, on broadcast in the 2020 to 2021 TV season are LGBTQ, including characters. Okay. Screwed there. All right. That's down from the record high of 10.2% in 2019-2020 television season. Canceling shows like How to Get Away with Murder and Empire and Stumptown took away from a lot of LGBTQ characters. I did not watch How to Get Away with Murder. I stopped watching Empire after season 1 because he said it was like King Lear, and I was like, yeah, it's interesting. And then it just turned into trash. And I have not seen Stumptown, so I have no idea if they do have queer characters in that show. I want to say queer from now on. Much easier. No, if they don't, they have LGBTQ characters in that show. But then there's also, new shows or recent shows that have these LGBTQ characters, but they've been delayed, like for the next season, like Euphoria, Killing Eve, the L Word, Generation Q. All of those have these characters that identify as such, but it just seems like it's hurting the cause and more the pandemic, excuse me, rather, because I said that I read something that I did only said the last half. The pandemic is hurting the cause in more ways than one. So basically the faster we can make these shows, the better the representation becomes, and then also there should be more inclusive characters in these shows. As much as I hate Supergirl, Alex is, and particularly Alex, Alex is a lesbian character, and the faster we can get that show, even though it's in its last season, on air, the more people can identify with her. So let's move on to WarnerMedia. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. Behind Warner Bros. Olive Branch, the top talent, written by Mia Gallupo and Kim Masters. So this is interesting because this is talking about when WarnerMedia said, hey, we're going to release all the movies onto HBO Max and in theaters, but also on HBO Max the same day. It kind of made stars and producers and directors reel back and want to re-examine their relationship with that company. But now it is said that Warner Brothers, this film studio, film side of it all, is reaching out to the likes of Denzel Washington. And like they've already done Gal Gadot, they've already done Patty Jenkins, to give them extra money on the back end for the money that they will lose by not having the movies in theaters. So Denzel's getting $20 million plus because of the streaming woes. But then conversely, Gal only got 10. And then Patty, I don't remember how much she received. But Warner is basically, they're trying to cover themselves and say, hey, no. We still, we're going to, theaters are our promise, and we're going to pay you the money that that you were supposed to get, that you'd theoretically be getting. And there's no, and what they get at in this article is that there's no one formula that really works in terms of this, how this should work, because we're in the middle of a pandemic and everyone is just figuring out as we go along. According to sources, a Warner's draft proposal outlined that talent making less than $4 million will be paid an additional 25% of their salary upon the release of the film as an advance against box office bonuses. Anyone making $4 million and over the advance will be getting 40% of their salary. Moreover, the box office performance thresholds tied to the bonuses would be halved, and regardless of the film's run at the global box office, all deferments would be honored upon the film's release. Oh, okay. Interesting. But the one that really concerns me is the box office performance thresholds tied to the bonuses would be halved. Oh, okay. So once if a movie grosses a certain amount, then the stars, the above the line people, would be paid more. And so now, since not like no movie is making, $200 million at the box office, if they make just $70 million, they get paid. Also, $70 million still too much for a pandemic, right? Okay. All right, listen, we're going to go to break, and then we come back. We got, hold on. Let me see if I can eke out one more story. And then the NBA is going to expand to 32 teams. Maybe, hope they're thinking. written by Jabari Young over on CNBC. Kansas City needs a billionaire to get an NBA team or to go to Las Vegas. The thing is, Adam Silver, NBA commissioner, is saying, hey, if we get more teams, then this will take less pressure off the current team owners to have to be losing so much money. So they're trying to expand up to 32 teams. And there's one possible team looking to be in Seattle, to be formed in Seattle, while Kansas City is asking for more money to expand, or they're going to have to go to Las Vegas. But then there's also logistical challenges in Las Vegas. Very interesting article. Check it out. Okay, now we'll go to break. Okay, we'll see you when we get back to talk about the last part. Bye. And we're back. Oh, yeah, good swig of water I got. So delicious and metallic-y. That might be a Tyler's episode. So delicious and metallic-y. Okay. Let's get into this episode, the rest of this, the final parts. He says, as it's been 30 seconds and he's not saying anything. All right. So today, I listened to Kara Swisher over on from the New York Times, a journalist. She has a podcast called Sway, where she talks to business industry leaders, and she talked to the guy who created Parler last week after the riots at the Capitol, and she destroyed him. She talks to Brene Brown. She talks to to get their side of the story, essentially. But also she questions them hard, and I love it. She's so good. She's so good at what she does. But she talked to Anna Wintour, the Vogue, the Vogue editor, the person who owns, Vogue and all that crap. CONDE NAST, excuse me. Yeah, whatever. Who cares? Anyway, so she talked to Anna Wintour, and they talked about the Kamala Harris cover for Vogue, which the digital version of that cover is getting the cover that Kamala Harris's people agreed upon, and then the one that's releasing to the public, not digitally, in a physical format, has a completely different picture that they said no, and it basically makes her look too casual. And anyway, take it as you will, but it's not something that is becoming of a incoming person of color vice president, female, and compared, and there's another Conde Nast story we'll get to in a second, but it just makes Kamala look not good. Like I said, becoming. And people are calling it disrespectful, which I agree with. Editor-in-chief. Anna Wintour is the editor-in-chief. According to the people familiar with the arrangement, both scenarios had been agreed on in advance from clothes to backdrops. However, while the portrait had been deemed the cover try, and the standing shot conceived as the inside photograph, Vogue had not granted any kind of contractual cover approval rights to Ms. Harris. That meant Ms. Harris's team had not seen the final choice, which was left to Vogue, and had not known the magazine had decided to swap the photos. It's I don't know. It just seems like, it just seems kind of rude in the end. It just makes she's coming into a position of power where the entire world should be respecting her, and then coming in with this the photo that is up there just doesn't look good. And she's a black woman, and she's Indian. She needs to be strong, look like that. But then also on the other side of Conde Nast, this comes from The Verge, from Ashley Carman, Who wrote the Vogue thing? Excuse me, for New York Times. That is written by Vanessa Friedman from the style section. Conde Nast Entertainment, this is from Verge again, Ashley Carmen. Conde Nast Entertainment wanted a major podcast network, but the producers say they got burned. So this is in 2020, Conde Nast was going to be a Conde Nast Entertainment. They were going to have all these podcasts. I believe before the blow up over at Bon Appetit, they had a podcast that was run by Adam Rappaport, who was the cause of the blow up. And it was a pretty big, I guess, food podcast. And so Conde Nast, seeing that, these companies, Earwolf was, and Stitcher was bought by Scripps, and all these other companies were snatching up Spotify's buying Joe Rogan. Conde Nast saw it fit that they were going to do the same thing, but they're going to do it themselves and make their own money. Conde Nast hired all these contractors to make these podcasts, make a couple of shows, and then the pandemic hit. And then racism, they were deemed racist and all this other stuff. And then eventually things just petered out, and the contractors, their contracts were canceled. The shows are now in the ether, or just like sitting in purgatory rather. So nothing. So they have no clue what's going on. Agnes Chu, a former Disney Plus executive, now leads Condé Nast Entertainment and took over for some other people who were fired because of problematic tweets. The source close to the Condé Nast says the vision was to create an in-house podcasting team, whereas Chu thinks the most effective ways to create shows is outsourcing their production. So basically, it's one plan from the past guy and the new person are just like not gelling, and also they're dealing with the wrath of people not watching. I loaded up Bon Appetit. I loaded it up. I got the cassette tape and I put it inside the VCR, and I saw the Bon Appetit videos. I went over to Bon Appetit's YouTube channel and. I think like a couple weeks ago or last week, and the videos that should be getting 500,000 to 1.5 million views aren't, and it's very a year ago at this time, people were commenting and loving it, and now they're just like not getting any views at all. So yeah, Condé Nast is still in this bad place. But speaking of bad places. I'm just kidding. There's no bad place for Netflix. Netflix is. I was listening to How I Built This with Guy Raz podcast, and he was talking to Jack Conte and the other guy who created Sam Yu, I believe, who created Patreon, and just like Spotify, just like Netflix, they're burning through cash, but they keep getting users, and that's how they keep making money. I just thought that was interesting. So this year. Just like Netflix did a couple of years ago with comedy specials every week, they're doing that for movies every week. And they have movies starring Leonardo DiCaprio. They have movies starring Kevin Hart. They have movies starring Ryan Reynolds, Dwayne Johnson, Gal Gadot. And though they may not be the best movies in the world, they're still feeding into this. Jay-Z's got a movie. But they're still feeding into this. Thing. Get out of here, bug. Get out of here. Okay. They're still feeding into this system that is Netflix's, and I hate saying this word, but content farm. This comes from the New York Times, written by, I believe it's John Coleman, Nicole Sperling. Excuse me. Netflix flexing its muscles announces 2021 film slate. The Scott Stuber runs the film section. He's the film chief. This comes from Variety. Netflix film chief Scott Stuber on streamers stacked 2021 slate and saving the rom-com, and he basically explains why they're doing a movie every single week. The idea is that there were DVD sales years ago, and that's how companies would make their money. And but now it's all streaming, and now they also have a global audience. So they're trying to reach as many people as possible. And a lot of these movies, yes, they are Hollywood, but a lot of them are going to be Bollywood movies that come out to American audiences, but also to Indian audiences. And that's going to be because shows like Money Heist have just done well. One of the shows in top 10 right now on the Netflix thing, when you see the top 10, is called Lupin, and I believe that is British, but don't quote me on that. So they have to think about all of their audiences around the world rather than just the American one. Let's see. Scott Stuber talks about being ahead of the curve on home releases for streaming. 3.5 years ahead of the curve is what he's talking about. He is coy on whether supporting movie theaters is still good. This is very interesting. And some of the movies are acquisitions. Some of the movies they had to buy from Sony or Universal or Paramount. So yeah. So it's just a very short interview, and the movies they're talking about on the New York Times, all that stuff. But then also, this is very interesting. This comes from Rebecca Sun over at The Hollywood Reporter. Netflix details 2 years of foundation building and first inclusion report. What I wrote in my notes was Netflix's inclusion numbers show growth, but it's still missing the mark. 45.5% of its U.S. employees are white, and then nearly half of their employees are women. So it's very interesting that yes, they have all these great roles for women in particular, but it's still kind of flatlining at some point. But I think in terms of showing that stuff off. In terms of that being out in the public, I think Netflix is doing a better job than the likes of it, CBS and the rest of them that have that type of stuff. As of October 2020, 47.1% of Netflix's 8,000 full-time streaming employees worldwide were women, which is, I think, 47 is a great number, but I would love to see it more. Race and ethnicity. Asians are the second most prevalent after the whites. But whites have 58% of the leadership, which is too much. And 45.5% overall. Asians after that are 23.9%. And then, which is 15.7% of leaders. And then Hispanic and Latino represent 8.1%. And then Netflix has nearly doubled its black employees, which is 8%. Oh, interesting. Good Lord. But these numbers, and that's in 2020 alone. But these numbers could change, obviously, and this company is still growing. But we're just talking about global expansion and global reach of movies and shows and stuff, but what it seems like is that they do have a good understanding of their audience and what they need to do in representation inside the company. Because if you can see, if they hire people of color and women and people in LGBTQ to work these jobs, then those people can say, hey, we need more shows starring black people. We need more shows starring, trans people. So it's great to see. But I want to see these numbers grow, and then especially for the GLAAD study, I want to see that grow year over year, quarter over quarter, even. People are changing jobs all the time in the industry. I know I will be soon. That's not a joke. All right, so. Speaking of jokes, if you like what you heard here, head on over to the website, sleeplesscomedy.com, where you can see, interviews with your favorite comedians. You can also, if you want to see a video version of the show, go to youtube.com/comedy. You can see me struggle to sit up straight because this microphone keeps falling over. Also on youtube.com/comedy is our premiere show, News Time, premier video entertainment business news show, which is an entertainment business news show where I talk about entertainment business news for the week. This week's episode is about Substack. It's a very good episode. I really like. I like doing the show. I love doing the show. I love doing the show. I have to keep convincing myself. I love doing the show. But when I do a really good episode, I'm proud of. It's a really good episode. I'm proud of. So check it out. Talking about journalists moving from big media conglomerates over to a newsletter, essentially, and making millions of dollars doing it. So check it out. It's a good episode. Instagram, Twitter, @C+Comedy, Facebook, C+Comedy, me, @C+Comedy, at Chad Blackwhite, no, on Instagram and Twitter. All right, I gotta go. I'm very hungry. I'll see you next time. Bye.